Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1499A, and today's date is February 15th, 2018, and the title of the episode is Central Banks Are Preparing to Take Control of the Blockchain. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, we're starting to see a lot more indicators showing us that the bubbles are popping, the economy is deteriorating, and eventually we're going to be going into a scenario where it's not going to be that great. And while this is happening, the central banks, they are making their move to try to take control of the blockchain system. Now, it doesn't mean that this is going to happen, but they're going to try to push their agenda to try to do this. Now, what's happening out in Canada right now, we're starting to see that January saw Canadian existing home sales crash by 14.5%. Now, this is the biggest drop on record. And what we're looking at right now is that the Chinese buyers, they're pulling their funds out of the system. They're investing it into the One Belt, One Road system, and they're pulling it out of Australia, pulling it out of Canada, the US, and the rest. And we're starting to see the sales of existing homes drop quite a bit. Now, in Toronto, home sales have crashed by a stunning 27% from December. Year on year, they're down 4.4%. Vancouver sales are down 10.5% month on month. And what we're starting to see is that things are not looking good. Now, also in Canada, the job market has never lost more part-time jobs than ever before, than in January. And this is exactly what we're seeing. We're starting to see everything start to break down. We're starting to hear that retail stores aren't doing well. The holiday season wasn't that great. We're starting to see inflation tick up. Right now, the Fed warns inflation has arrived. We see the Philadelphia, the New York Fed, the prices have soared. And we're starting to see that inflation is starting to tick up. Now, what's going to happen here is that the central banking system, they want inflation, and when inflation hits, they're not going to be able to control it. It's going to get out of control. And all of a sudden, they're going to try to control it, and it's going to get worse and worse as time goes on. Now, what we're seeing is a surge in the regional feds, and we're starting to see that the prices paid index, the clearest indicator of input cost inflation, which in the New York Fed surged by 36.2 to 48.6. This is the highest in 6 years. And what we're starting to see is that all of this is happening at once. Now, while all this is happening and the economy is breaking down, we see that the central banks, they're trying to control the system. Now, eventually what they want to do is they're trying to control the blockchain. They're trying to drive everyone away from Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies while they push forth their system. Now, what's very interesting is that Ripple is going to work in the banking system of the oil-rich kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Now, Saudi Arabia and Ripple, the company behind the XRP coin, will cooperate using Xcurrent software that enables banks to instantly settle cross-border payments with end-to-end tracking. Central banks around the world are leaning into blockchain technology in recognition of how it can transform cross-border payments, resulting in lower barriers to trade and commerce for both corporates and consumers. The Saudi Central Bank will be the first to use Ripple's blockchain network. Ripple is being traded as a cryptocurrency, but it is more of a token than digital money. It peaked at $3.31 in January, but is trading around $1.15 this week. The idea of the token is to act as a bridge between international bank transactions, not to become an alternative for fiat currencies. And what they're doing right now is they're testing this out. And eventually what is going to happen is they're going to push their agenda. Because you have to remember, the crypto market, that competes against them. They're very afraid of it. This is why they've been demonizing it. And we can see right now that everything is starting to accelerate. We're starting to see the economy come down. And I'm not talking about the stock market, the manipulated numbers, none of that kind of stuff. We're talking about the real people's economy, where the central banks really don't have that much control. They can't control what people spend. They can't control if people have jobs. All they can do is control on how people borrow and how much debt they can get into. That's all they can do. They can prop up the banks, yes, of course, but they can't really do that much. And what we're seeing right now is they realize and they understand that the economy can only last for so long before the whole thing starts to fall apart. And that's exactly what they're seeing right now. Everything is starting to fall apart. And I'm talking about the actual economy. Just like in 2008, where everything was falling apart before the market came down. They knew it was happening. They kind of kicked it off by raising interest rates. And they're doing the same thing right now. And as we move into this phase, we're going to see a lot of chaos around the world. It's not just going to be with the economy because everything is tied into it. Think about what is happening out in the Middle East with the petrodollar and how the system was built and how it's sustained. All of it is coming down now because their agenda to capture all of these countries and keep everyone using the petrodollar, it did not work. And we mentioned this many times before, and we're starting to see that all of this is starting to come true, where there are countries now moving away from the dollar. They're moving into either cryptocurrencies or into their own currency, or they're trading with China and Russia using their currency. But we can see right now, everything is being moved away from the dollar. The dollar eventually will be toxic to many different countries, and they won't even want to deal with it. And I know there's many people saying, no, the dollar's going to last forever. It's always going to be here. Well, nothing lasts forever. And if you look at all the other reserve currencies in the past, they don't exist today. And if you go back further than that, the currencies, the paper currencies that they had back then, they don't even exist today. Yes, there will be some type of dollar, but it won't be the dollar that we know. It won't be the petrodollar. It might not even say Federal Reserve on it, but when everything is said and done. It might say the United States Treasury. It might say nothing because it might be electronic. We're definitely moving into something completely different. The central bankers have driven the global economy as far as they possibly can. They knew eventually they were going to have to do something. They were hoping, and this is what they were planning, they were hoping to have a major event. They were hoping to distract everyone. This is what their plan was. Everything is up in the air now because they don't have the ability to create a major distraction to say this is why the economy came down. So they're reorganizing. They're taking their old plans, replacing it with their new plans, and they're going to go forward with that. And we can see they're already starting to do this with a lot of headlines saying that Trump owns the economy. Once the stock market came down, it's Trump's economy now, and they keep putting these articles out there pushing that type of agenda. And eventually, probably in the next couple of months, we're going to start to see extra crazy things happening in the economy. And a lot of the corporate media is going to be out there and they're going to be pointing the finger at the Trump administration. This has been planned because their original plans, they can't push anymore. They can't push stuff in North Korea. They can't push stuff in Syria. They can't do it with Iran. It's all falling apart. So they have nothing left. So they have to resort to blame all of this on the Trump administration because this is their only out at this point. And yes, we're going to see other distractions and other things happen, but there's going to be a battle between what system we end up with. Now, hopefully, we end up with a system that's outside of the central bank where the central bank no longer exists. But if we don't, well, they're going to control the entire situation. They're going to bring the economy down very hard. They're not going to stop it. Actually, they're going to cause it. They're going to point the finger. And if they are able to control and bring down the economy, it's going to come down fast and hard. If it does come down fast and hard, a lot of people are going to get hurt. A lot of people, when I say going to get hurt, means their wealth is going to evaporate in a matter of seconds. And a lot of people aren't going to know what happened here. The dollar is going to lose value very quickly. We're going to see inflation ramp up very quickly. They're going to lock down the banks. All of this is going to happen if the central banks get their way. If they don't get their way, we're going to see a softer transition where we're going to move slowly into the new system. And still, we're going to see problems. Just like when we came on the petrodollar system, there were shortages of oil. A lot of people were out of work. We came off the gold standard, and a lot of things were out of whack. But we were coming on to a new system. We were still the reserve currency with or without gold. This time, we're not going to be the reserve currency. We're going to be coming off a system that is backed by absolutely nothing, where we have this huge amount of debt, where the interest rates are near zero, and we're going to see inflation. Wages are going to be continually decline. People are going to lose jobs. It's going to be very, very different because we're at the end of the system. And the reserve currency could be a cryptocurrency where each country decides they're going to have their own, or it could be the central bank's reserve currency that they're setting up, which they want to control. Now, it could be on the blockchain. It could be the Chinese yuan. It could be the SDR. It could be a mixture of the SDR with fiat currency and cryptocurrencies all in one. We don't know as of yet. But we can see right now we have two scenarios going on right now, and we're getting closer and closer to the point where the whole system is coming down. It's coming down very, very quickly. We're starting to see a lot of the bubbles pop, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. Yes, they can delay it a little bit, but they can't stop it. And we can see that at this point that everyone needs to be prepared and ready because we're going to see this accelerate very, very quickly. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.